debt crisis at the beginning of the 20th century. The European powers came and shelled, their navy came and shelled Venezuela. They got permission of the US because they couldn't repay their debts to international banks. Mexico was occupied in the middle of the 20th century. These are countries that were occupied because they couldn't pay the debts. Today it's different, especially after the banking, the financial crisis of 1997.
Right.
Sometimes government might take at risk, others that the banks must also bear the risk. You can't expect governments to be paying out when banks have also knowingly entered into a contract. And that's all that I'm saying.
I mean, why is HSBC singled out? I mean, there are JP Morgan and Barclays and all those guys are also doing.
We have written on JP Morgan also. We are also investigating JP Morgan on another issue on the MiG-27 deal. Then also this whole deal will come under, there are complaints by some of the Sri Lankan banks that they gave better offers as far as this was concerned, and that there's a lack of transparency. You know, that's also an issue that has to be investigated at some point.
Essentially what you are saying is that there are legal issues and HSBC and everyone else better look out for the...
I can't tell HSBC what to do or JP Morgan.
But the government is saying, why worry about it? UNP will never come to office.
That's a different matter. You want me to discuss it here? I can.
That's not the plan.
As it is, I have said that I am having a people's movement to bring the government down to the streets and have elections. Now the government has panicked, and they think that they'll fall down they'll fall by the time of the budget.
I want to move to you know, the background of these borrowing limits. When you came to office in 2001, you found that the debt to GDP ratio was over 100%, and the tax revenue that year was not sufficient even to pay debts that you owed that year alone. Now, in that context, in 2003, the Parliament enacted the Financial Management Responsibility Act. What was the thinking behind it, and how happy are you with its progress?
The act was drawn by us when we were in the opposition. We realized how serious the situation was, and that we had to have some legal standards by which the performance of a government was judged in relation to fiscal matters and its own bearings on monetary affairs in the country.
Right.
It was one of the first laws enacted by us. Now 2003, I think in 2002, February or March,
Right.
we enacted that, and it helped us to bring the economy under control from negative growth into positive growth. In most countries, they have some law similar to this. It's a part of the government's responsibility to Parliament. Parliament controls public finance. We are also responsible for the monetary affairs of the country. So we have to be responsible. One was to put the one reason was to put the government's finance into shape. Other was to strengthen the powers of Parliament by ensuring that the government was responsible to Parliament for the fiscal and monetary measures. It's not being observed now, and as a result, I find that Parliament's powers are being eroded in regard to public finance.
The reduction of the debt to GDP ratio, which according to the Act, by now should have been 85%, but in fact it is some 93%. I mean, is that the case? I mean, is the government bound to meet that target?
Those are numbers that the government has to meet.
I want to get to the issue of public finance, and I'll quote from what you said in Parliament. You said the government is acting with complete disregard of all financial regulations in the utilization of public finances. And then you say that the government is in complete contravention of the Constitution.
I said the government is acting in violation of all laws and regulations, not only regulations.
Right.
Now you take what we took up, the issue which we took up in Parliament yesterday.
Right.
Under the Constitution, all government monies must be put into the consolidated fund.
Right.
And it can be withdrawn under the warrant of the minister, but the warrant has to be issued in accordance with either a motion passed in Parliament or by a law passed by Parliament. Now what's happened is, in the Appropriation Act for 2005 and 2006, they brought in a new provision which are not there earlier. Earlier you could the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance could transfer monies from program to program under the same head.
Right.
It's a limited power given to him. Under this, monies from the the department national budget
Yes.
could be transferred to any head, any program under any ministry. Now, that's very sweeping powers,
Right.
which should really have been exercised by Parliament.
Right.
But the order had to be made in terms of Section 6.
Okay.
Now we found payments made to Lankaputra Bank,
Right.
which were not done under the provisions of Section 6 because they did not meet with the criteria set down in Section 6.
Of the appropriation.
Yeah. Then there is also a sentence, the last sentence, which says this money so transferred shall deem to be a supplementary estimate submitted by the minister. So
Right.
if you read that with Article 150, which says approval of Parliament is necessary,
Right.
then they should have got approval for the transfer of these monies. Now we find that they have not taken approval. They have bypassed Parliament. Then they have gone and created new heads. Now that is taking over the legislative power of Parliament. So it's very, very serious. You violated the Constitution in respect of public finance. You violated the Constitution in respect of legislative powers. Now if this is not legal, then they come within the ambit of the public property law.
So that is theft? Or?
It is. I mean, if you look at what happened to Sripati Suraj with some one vehicle, and Johnny Fernando was taken in because three ordinary spoons were missing. This is certainly going to be far more serious.
So what happens now?
This is the issue that I've taken up in Parliament.
Yeah.
But government is regarding all the laws and this. This is why even the HSBC loan comes into this category. I mean, we have a separate group that studies public finance, legislative affairs.
So you are saying this loan will also be in contravention to the...
I said it's not authorized by law.
Okay, whatever you say, Mr. Wickremesinghe, the government is saying they are going to go ahead with the bond. The road show is scheduled to start one of these days, and they are hopeful of getting this money. They are saying the investors are eager, in fact, to invest in Sri Lankan bonds. And I quote, they say, when the money comes in, the absurdity of your position will be exposed. How do you respond to that?
My duty is to inform everyone what we are going to do once the UMP government takes over. I have done that duty. I think we passed it around everywhere. If people want to go and invest money at their risk, well, that is their job, not ours. But we will not honor this, and we have made it very, very clear. If the HSBC and the government decides to come to an agreement on this and they issue the bond, then we will also pass relevant resolutions in our party that we will have to adhere to once we come into power, which will be to cancel this bond. At the moment, we have taken the first step of informing everyone. Thereafter, we will take these steps, and once we come to power, we will cancel the bond.
But that will have a huge, repercussion, black mark for Sri Lanka.
It's not so, Harsha, because everyone is borrowing at risk now. And once we establish the legal basis as to why we are doing it, it's the same as any other loan. I mean, if the government has no authority, if the government is acting outside the law, and we have informed the bank, then they have to take the hit. That's all. It's a part of the rules of commerce.
Well, let's assume you are in office and then you actually cancel this loan and then refuse to pay it back. How will your government then?
No problem there. There are many countries which have raised issues in regard to one single project, one single loan, and we are going on the basis of the fact that it is not authorized by law. It's not that I am coming down and cancelling some law bond which is legal. So now people can't go back to their governments and say, look, we lost your money, because then the governments can turn around and say, you were informed of this, you have taken it at risk. That's all, we put it at risk. We put them on notice so that they can't go and pressurize their governments. As far as UMP is concerned, we have a good track record. I don't think there's going to be a problem for us. But on the other hand, I am not going to resort to this type of borrowing. You don't require it. As far as we are concerned, there's a very high level of debt, and that's getting tied up to corruption. That's the other thing. And we are going to clean up corruption this time. It's not only politicians who are corrupt. The business sector is corrupt. If you look at what some of the business people will tell you about their own colleagues,